The damaged nuclear reactors in Japan are raising concerns about the health effects of radiation exposure. We're on the phone now with Dr. Russell Blaylock. He's a renowned neurosurgeon, health practitioner, book author, and editor of the Blaylock Wellness Report. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you.
There are some reports that if radiation from the damaged nuclear plants cannot be contained, a radiation cloud might eventually reach Hawaii and even the west coast of America. Now, if this happened, what kind of health risks would there be?
Well, most of the health risks are not going to be due to acute radiation poisoning. It's going to be your risk of increased cancer. The doses will be lower. But when we looked at Chernobyl, and I did a very intensive study of what happened in Chernobyl, a lot of it was kept secret. Most of West Germany was heavily contaminated. Norway, Sweden, Hungary is terribly contaminated. The soil, the plants, the radiation was taken up into the plants. The food was radioactive. The milk, they took the milk, turned it into cheese. The cheese was radioactive. That's the big dangers. The crops in this country being contaminated, the milk in particular with strontium-90. That radiation is incorporated in the bones and stays for a lifetime.
There are relatively safe forms of radiation that people are exposed to, like X-rays. But in the case of Japan, can you talk about some of the health risks of the people near the sites of those damaged plants?
Well, near the site, of course, they have the greatest danger. Its safety limit is set at 5 rads per year. They're getting this dose within a short period of time. Now, at about 100 to 400 rads, you drastically increase death risk, going from 10% to 90% death rate. So once you get above 600 rads, about 95% of people are going to die within 2 weeks. Now, it depends on the isotope that's being released. Iodine-131 has an 8-day half-life, which dissipates fairly quickly within a couple of weeks. But cesium-137 and strontium-90, which is also released by the reactor, has a half-life of 30 years. So we're talking about very long contamination, 100 years or more of these areas, which happened with Chernobyl, with very high levels of radiation. Now, it drastically increases the number of cancers, for instance, cancer of the thyroid, bone marrow, lungs, breast, and prostate.
Overexposure to high levels of radiation during a short period of time can lead to ARS, acute radiation syndrome. What are the immediate symptoms, some of the longer-term effects, and possible treatments for it?
Well, the effects are called radiation sickness, and that's nausea, vomiting, the loss of appetite. They get very weak, very lethargic. Then after about a couple of days, they feel real good. Then they have a relapse. Symptoms all return. They have bleeding from the gums, rectal bleeding, bloody diarrhea, gums bleeding, hair loss, and the weakness increases. And then they're at the high risk of infection. Now, the protection, there's a number of things that are highly protective. Of course, everybody seems to know about iodine protecting the thyroid gland, and it works very well, but you have to take the iodine before you're exposed to get the best effect. But things like ginkgo biloba is very radioprotective. Beta-glucan, which is an immune stimulant, has been found to protect the bone marrow, protect against getting leukemia, multiple myeloma. Curcumin is an extremely powerful radioprotectant against all sorts of damage from radiation. Garlic, even melatonin, which we use for sleep, is very powerful. Magnesium protects you. Alpha-lipoic acid was used in Chernobyl, and they found tremendous protection from alpha-lipoic acid even after being exposed.
What about in less severe cases of radiation exposure? Is it possible to treat it and see no lasting health damage?
It's possible. It depends on the dose of the radiation and how quickly that dose was administered. But these combinations of these agents like curcumin and garlic and ginkgo biloba, even after exposure, has a tremendous protective effect.
All right, briefly, can you tell us about your book, Nuclear Sunrise, as a resource for people worried about the situation in Japan, and where can they get it?
Yeah, I wrote an e-book called Nuclear Sunrise, which goes through all the different things we know about radiation protection. It was written about radiation from nuclear terrorism, but it goes through a lot of this in a lot more detail, tells the doses of these things you need to take. You can get it from www.blaylockwellnesscenter.com.
Thank you very much, Dr. Russell Blaylock. As always, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax.